Hey, what's up, everybody? And this is going to be my spoiler review of episode 1 of The Walking Dead World Beyond. So, again, if you haven't checked out the episode yet, this is going to be full-blown spoilers here. So, yes, this is the first episode of the new series of The Walking Dead, and there's so much to cover in this first episode because it's the beginning of the series, and so you know there's a good amount of foundation that needs to be laid in order to get its viewers accustomed to this new world in the Walking Dead universe, because it's unlike anything else. Now, if you've seen my preview review, I laid down all the things I can really say that wasn't spoilerish, but like I talked a lot about the tone difference here. But now I'm going to give you the details as to why this feels like a different series, along with other things that happen in this episode that's definitely worth noting and talking about. Now, this episode is titled Brave, and it's truly about Iris. Iris is the new main character that we are following in this episode, and Iris is dealing with a lot. She's the Madam President at the new campus colony, which we're getting a view of. And campus colony is Omaha, Nebraska. It's housing about 9,000 people, and it's actually on Acropolis campus. You know, before the apocalypse, this was actually the Nebraska State University campus, but now it is the new location for this civilization of people, where they're protected behind walls, they've been safe, and you know they got this system that's truly working. And they're kind of putting in a time frame. It's been about 10 years into the apocalypse, which is about the same timeline as what's happening in season 10 of The Walking Dead. So they're in the same exact time period. So when you start thinking about connections here, you can consider that. Also, you can think that this is actually 6 years since Rick has been kidnapped, or shall I say, or taken away by who we'll talk about in a second too, because that helicopter that Rick was taken away by, we actually get a little bit more information about who they are and what do they do. But so yes, we get to meet Iris, and Iris is intelligent. She's like well respected, and all she wants to do is follow her dad's footsteps, who is a well-renowned scientist who is away right now. But she's very ambitious. We'll talk about Iris' dad in a minute. But so this campus colony is part of the Three Ring Network, which consists of them, Portland, and the Civic Republic. Now, the Civic Republic is part of where that helicopter infantry came from. So CRM stands for Civic Republic Military, who's part of the Civic Republic, who has a government. They have a whole, it seems like they got a whole like legit government system, because we got mentions of how people could be arrested, how there's obviously civilians, but there's government officials, and then there's the military. So like they legit are running a legitimate government system there, it seems like. But so along with that, we meet Elizabeth Kubik, who is the lieutenant colonel of the CRM, and like clearly no one trusts her. I didn't trust her instantly. Like, come on now, they came out flexing with their weapons, wearing all black with their face guards on, and then they lied too. Talk about they only had one helicopters when we got to see Iris' sister Hope, who was kind of bandwagon in this, as we see in this little meetup that Iris set up with the CRM, or with CR, but they actually sent the military, not the government, which was a little shady as well too. But we seem like they clearly are up to no good, because there's a lot of discrepancies on the things that happen in that. But you know, it's a lot of foreshadowing that's happening. But we're going to get back to that in a second. But going back into Campus Colony, we see that they do protection different too. I mean, they use different weapons, and they're really safe within their walls. But even externally, when you talk about safety, internally they're taking precautions as well too, like the guarded gates over the doors in case somebody dies inside their room. I thought is like the most genius thing that we've just never seen, but that just shows you how far they're thriving outside of other groups that we've seen in the other Walking Dead universe. So like, we kind of seen how that security door is put to test already, unfortunately, because that was a character I was automatically getting ready to be like super invested in. But yes, that's exactly the use for. And again, you're just talking about how they're using and how they're going about safety, totally different than what we're used to. I mean, again, everyone has sort of say high-tech weaponry, you know, or really it's well crafted, shall I say, but in the, you know, in other groups we've seen more like sticks and stuff like that, and but like it's different on that note. But when you think about Iris and Hope, the two sisters here, we see the dynamics between how they're totally different. Iris is trying to play by the rules, and she's real respected within her community. And Hope is more of like the vigilante. She's a badass. She does what she wants to do, regardless. We've seen her trying to steal some liquor and get arrested for that, or put in a temporary holding for that. She completely goes against the grain. I mean, she wasn't even supposed to go to that meet, and she did, and then she's flicking off Elizabeth. And and she keeps it honest. She says, look, I don't trust them, and she goes about it the way she wants to. And even when it came down to the trauma aspect of their backgrounds, where we see how their parents' absence definitely has different effects on them, Iris goes to see a therapist, who I love the therapist, which I wanted to say now, because she keeps it real, and she really put into perspective the issues that Iris is dealing with. I wish we got more of her. And then Hope, who's actually hanging out with Huck, getting some combat training. So she's taking the physical way of it. And she's also been very, very blunt about the idea of like she's going outside the walls once she's prepared. So like we're seeing the difference here. Like Iris wants to stay in the safety. And Hope is like, hey, I'm leaving once I'm like well prepared. And with that dynamic here, we've seen how, we're seeing foreshadow how that's going to be problematic, but at the same time, it's going to create good story drama. Because for me, it's for like they're just one up in each other in like the big sister role. Like one wants to just protect the other, and the one's kind of, just being guarded to the other, and they just keep trying to do this with each other, taking initiative for the sake of the other one. But even still, like Hope is pushing Iris to be more brave, and we see a display of Iris being brave on numerous accounts. Her and how she speaks to Elizabeth, her actually coming up with the idea of, wanting to leave the campus. And, once they get the message from their dad, they even like, you even see them how they handle that different. Hope is like, I didn't trust them. We got to do something. Hope's like, well, I mean, Iris like, well, it has numbers, what was it is, so like, I love this sister dynamic, and I think it's really going to make a good, again, a good drama for this series. But going back to Elizabeth, now, I don't trust Elizabeth for nothing. First of all, Elizabeth gives them the map in the sake of trying to gain trust, and then she's talking about, oh, I'm drunk, and, if anybody known I gave you this, I would go to jail, and this is how they would know I did it because of the markings, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, really? No one's buying that right now. So it just comes off like really fake, and obviously to know a little, we see the true colors by the end of the episode. I will say that what I really liked about this episode is the flashback scenes where we got to see when the sky was falling, and I thought like how the empties were displayed and the crash wreckage with the fire and the low light. I thought that was just beautifully shot. I absolutely love that. And of course, we can't get, I guess we probably will get more flashback scenes of it at some point, because again, the two girls are dealing with the trauma from their past, and so they're getting a lot of callbacks and flashbacks to it. But nonetheless, I just love how it was shot. It was just very, very, very beautifully done. There is some things that I can say about those flashback scenes that's really important, but I'm not going to say it because even though this is a spoiler review, I think there's super huge critical plot points that I'm going to wait to the very, very end to disclose those, just to make sure that anybody who's may not have seen it absolutely knows exactly or have the opportunity to do so. But so, I like how the four of these kids all come together to go outside the wall for what seems to be a very ambitious cause. I mean, number one, obviously trying to find the truth and going to rescue their dad, because that's the only person they trust. But the four of them actually going out because they're seeking purpose. And yeah, sure, there's curiosity, but at the same time, they're trying to define themselves and searching for the truth. And I think that as little kids doing that, that's such a really noble way to go about something. And I can get behind that. And at the same time, too, we know this is not really probably the smartest thing to do because it's obviously dangerous out there, and they're naive and they have no clue what's beyond the walls. And as we see, like, they're not totally prepared. Sure, they're very intelligent to what's the world out there to an extent and how to handle the empties. But when it comes down to the actual threat and being on the job, shall I say, we see how they have a lot of growing to do. I mean, to be honest, the comparison here is Carl back when he was young and how he was just always falling into some trouble and always having his life threatened. And we're seeing that the four of them together out there with no adult supervision, shall I say, nobody skilled as of yet. And they're just going out there risking it. But sure enough that there's help to follow as we getting to see Felix and Huck coming after them. Felix obviously has the training since he teaches the training classes on the campus, and Huck obviously as well too because she also teaches it. So you know, them going, and also Felix is the head of their dad's security detail, so like he understands it better than anybody else. So at some point, hopefully they'll get together to kind of protect him. But in episode 1, as of now, they're just playing sort of the cat and mouse thing, where they're just leaving clues, and then Felix and Huck are just following behind. So you know, it's just totally different on that notion when it comes down to the to this series and any other series in the Walking Dead universe, is that we're following 4 kids and it has that really soft tone, and the empties threat isn't really handled the same way like we're used to seeing, because they're more strategical in a mental state of how they're gonna get past them and how they can manipulate their way through it. Where before we were seeing more of a brute force. So it's totally different on that note. And I think it's going to be a good time. Like, I enjoyed this episode. Obviously, you know, going into the second episode, I was very much excited to see what was going to happen next. But for the first episode, as most episodes are considered a pilot, I would consider this a success because it did a lot. And when you're thinking about some of the things dealing with CRM and where Rick location may be in the movie for Rick Grimes, and then when you're kind of considering that you're seeing 4 kids who was sheltered in a place that was protected to wanting to go out, we're seeing a totally different dynamic than we're not accustomed to. So I am very, very much intrigued. But yes, this is my review of episode 1, Brave, of The Walking Dead World Beyond. Definitely stay tuned because episode 2 is dropping and the review is coming up very soon.